If you think America's biggest political fight right now is about immigration numbers, tariff percentages, or who sits in the Fed chair, you're watching the wrong screen. The real story is more subtle and more dangerous. The United States is drifting into a governing style where national security becomes the universal justification for power. Once that logic takes hold, it doesn't stay confined to borders or trade. It spreads into courts, markets, institutions, and everyday life. Los Angeles is where this shift becomes visible. When federal immigration enforcement moves aggressively into a major American city, especially one that resists cooperation, it stops looking like administration and starts looking like confrontation. Agents conduct operations, protests erupt, videos circulate, politicians respond instantly, and the story hardens before the facts settle. Supporters see strength, critics see overreach, but both sides are missing the deeper mechanism. This isn't just enforcement, it's signaling. Immigration enforcement has become a message to voters, to markets, and to the courts. It says, this administration can move fast, bypass friction, and impose consequences. That signal matters more than any single arrest. Because once power demonstrates speed, expectations change. And expectations are the real currency of politics. Here's the part most commentary avoids. Legitimacy is not measured by how many people you arrest. Legitimacy is measured by what happens when the system is challenged, when a case is disputed, when a judge intervenes, when an accusation is contested, when someone claims they were swept up unfairly. That's why one controversial case can outweigh thousands of routine outcomes. Metrics don't drive public trust. Symbols do. In a system built on law, speed without visible fairness becomes a liability. The faster enforcement accelerates, the more a single error, or even the perception of one, can rewrite the entire narrative. And once that narrative flips, numbers stop mattering. This is where the sanctuary city debate becomes more complicated than either side admits. Sanctuary policies don't eliminate enforcement. They often relocate it. When local authorities limit cooperation, federal enforcement loses access to controlled pipelines like jails and courts. That pushes operations into the open, neighborhoods, workplaces, streets. The result is a paradox. Policies designed to reduce fear can make enforcement more visible, more chaotic, and more politically combustible. Field operations increase friction. Friction increases resistance. Resistance justifies escalation. That feedback loop is not theoretical, it's structural. And once it begins, the conflict stops being about immigration and starts becoming a test of authority itself. Who decides? Who resists? Who backs down? In a polarized country, those questions don't stay procedural. They become existential. But immigration is only the front edge of a much larger pattern. The same governing logic is now being applied to trade and economic power. Tariffs are no longer just an economic tool. They're framed as a national security necessity. Supply chains aren't just about efficiency anymore. They're about sovereignty. Industrial policy isn't just about growth, it's about survival. This framing is politically powerful. National security language flips the burden of proof. It turns debate into urgency. It recasts opposition as recklessness, and it treats delay as danger. But here's the hidden cost. When emergency logic becomes routine, constitutional limits become optional, and optional limits don't survive stress. That's why the legal battle over emergency-based tariff authority matters so much. This isn't a technical trade dispute. It's a test of whether the executive branch can reshape the economy under the banner of emergency, with limited oversight and unstable rules. Markets don't fear tariffs. Markets fear unpredictability. Businesses can adapt to higher costs or lower costs. What they struggle with is not knowing who controls the lever, how durable the rules are, or whether today's policy survives tomorrow's court decision. When trade policy is built on elastic authority, uncertainty becomes a tax on investment. And uncertainty hits long before factories open or close. It delays capital. It freezes planning. It turns long-term strategy into short-term hedging. Listen carefully to the rhetoric around reshoring and manufacturing. The language is immediate and absolute. Factories are flooding back. Investment is pouring in. A golden age is arriving. But real industrial transformation doesn't happen on cable news timelines. It happens over years, through permitting, grid capacity, workforce development, logistics, and supplier ecosystems. Politics promises results in months. Industry delivers them in decades. That timing mismatch is dangerous. If voters don't feel improvement quickly, if rent, insurance, healthcare, and daily costs remain painful, the narrative starts to feel performative. And when people feel they're being sold performance instead of progress, trust collapses further. This is where inflation's psychological scar matters more than its technical definition. Inflation isn't just about rates, it's about levels. When the price level jumps, stability still feels like loss. Households don't celebrate that prices stopped rising quickly. They live with the reality that life is permanently more expensive. That's why economic messaging is under so much pressure right now. People want relief, not explanations. They want affordability, not charts. And when relief doesn't arrive fast enough, someone must be blamed. Enter the Federal Reserve. The fight over the Fed isn't really about interest rates. It's about ownership of pain. Central banks exist to absorb blame, to make unpopular decisions so politicians don't have to. But in an era of fragile trust, that buffer is weakening. When housing is unaffordable, it's the Fed. When jobs cool, it's the Fed. When markets wobble, it's the Fed. The danger isn't criticism. Criticism is healthy. The danger is normalizing the idea that monetary independence is an obstacle rather than a safeguard. Once central banks are openly treated as extensions of political will, long-term trust erodes. And trust is the invisible foundation of financial stability. You can force short-term rates down. You cannot command long-term confidence. If investors begin to doubt the discipline of the system, borrowing costs rise where policy can't easily reach. That's how control backfires. This brings us to the quieter but equally revealing battlefield: healthcare subsidies and shutdown brinkmanship. When programs that affect millions of households become bargaining chips, governance turns into leverage warfare. Deadlines become threats, shutdowns become tactics, and policy becomes hostage. This matters economically because it teaches markets and citizens that stability is conditional, that government functions only when power balances align. Over time, that perception corrodes legitimacy just as surely as contested enforcement cases do. Now step back and connect the pattern. Immigration enforcement as signal, tariffs as signal, Fed pressure as signal, shutdown threats as signal. Each move says the same thing. Power is being asserted, and resistance carries consequences. This style of governance can be effective in the short term. It accelerates action. It intimidates opposition. It creates the impression of control. But it comes with a long-term cost. Institutions stop acting as stabilizers and start acting as battlegrounds. In complex economies, stabilizers matter. When they fail, volatility rises. When volatility rises, fear spreads. And fear creates demand for even stronger authority. That's how emergency becomes permanent. Now consider the weaponization narrative, the claim that law enforcement and institutions were turned into political tools. This narrative resonates because it targets legitimacy directly. If institutions are seen as partisan, public trust collapses. But there's a trap here. If every institution is declared corrupt, then the only remaining source of legitimacy becomes the leader who promises to cleanse them. That shift, from institutional legitimacy to personal legitimacy, is historically dangerous. It replaces rules with loyalty, process with allegiance. Democracies are supposed to be designed to survive leaders. When systems are rebuilt around individuals, durability disappears. Even when abuses occur, how a society corrects them matters. Reform through transparency and law strengthens institutions. Reform through permanent emergency rhetoric weakens them. So what is this moment really about? It's not whether borders should be enforced. Most Americans support removing violent criminals and maintaining order. It's not whether supply chains should be secure. That's common sense. It's not even whether trade policy needs rethinking. Many agree it does. The real question is how power is exercised to pursue those goals. Will America build durable policy through predictable rules, open debate, and institutions that survive elections? Or will it govern through urgency, spectacle, and emergency logic that concentrates authority and sidelines constraint? Because whatever method is normalized now becomes precedent later. Precedent doesn't care who benefits today. It applies to whoever holds power tomorrow. That's why Los Angeles matters more than it seems. It's not just a city. It's a test case for how the state relates to the citizen, through law or through pressure. If enforcement becomes increasingly theatrical rather than precise, legitimacy erodes. If contested cases multiply, trust weakens. If trade rules remain legally unstable, investment hesitates. If households don't feel relief where it counts, narratives collapse. Politics always follows lived reality. You can declare a boom. You can announce a turnaround. You can promise a golden age. But if people still feel priced out, anxious, and uncertain about the future, power hardens instead of persuades. There is a version of this era that ends well. It's the version where enforcement becomes targeted rather than performative, where due process remains visible, where trade policy is anchored in durable law, where industrial strategy is patient and real, where central bank independence is respected even amid debate, and where social policy is negotiated without hostage tactics. And there is another version that ends badly. It's the version where every problem becomes a security crisis, every crisis becomes an emergency, and every emergency justifies more concentrated power, until institutions are hollowed out and trust is gone. When you see that pattern, you are no longer watching normal politics. You are watching a system trying to govern through pressure instead of consent. No noise, no spin, just analysis. Now let me ask you the question that cuts through every headline in this story. Do you believe America is restoring order and rebuilding capacity, or normalizing a rule-by-emergency playbook that will eventually be used against whoever loses the next power struggle? Which risk worries you more, weak enforcement or unchecked power?